welcome back to the channel.
Yes, thank you for
I
having me
believe
back.
this is our no problem. What is this? Our third one so far, I think.
Third
This
one.
is nice. This is awesome. I really appreciate you having me on, and obviously we both got our football gear on. You are rocking the Lions, so therefore I don't even have to ask who you're cheering for. But before we step into that, let's do a quick little recap. So obviously we didn't get a chance to do our review from wild card and our thing for divisional round. So let's just dive right into the wild card round. I have all the scores in front of me, and I'm just going to go through each game and get your opinion on each one. So obviously, you had in the wild card round the Dallas Cowboys and the Packers. I think I picked the Dallas Cowboys to win. That was probably the biggest upset of that weekend. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it was definitely a shock. We'll put it that way. Definitely a shock seeing the Cowboys go out like that. And wild card is just so early for them. I really thought that they were going to go at least past wild card. I mean, I thought they were going to make it to this weekend's games in the championships, but they just crumbled. Cowboys going to Cowboy. I mean, what can you say?
It's been a gong show. I think the last time they made it to like the conference final was when they last won the Super Bowl was with the late or mid '90s, like '96 or something like that. So it's hard to believe it's been almost 30 years since they've been to a conference championship, let alone a Super Bowl. So obviously, that when you have a guy like Dak Prescott, I have to say this real quick is at the very beginning of his career, I thought he was kind of like wishy-washy because like it seemed like after his rookie year, him and Zeke kind of like were going down a little bit. Obviously, Zeke regressed worse. And obviously, they ended up giving him away. But, I mean, he looked like an almost MVP caliber this season. If it wasn't for Lamar, and obviously there's others that are, I'm sure they're in that top five, he would have got my vote because, I mean, he led the team to a division crown. And they've had 3 straight 12-5 seasons. And, I mean, for any team, they'd be happy to have that. But because I think the expectations are so high with the Cowboys, that when they're one and done, it's just a major disappointment.
Yeah, a lot of regular season success turned into not a lot of postseason success. They're like the 2010s Chargers, where they always seem to be winning, but they never seem to get over that hump of being that, like, getting to the final game. So it's
Yeah, and I mean, I'll say this is a quick little side note: is even though I'm a Broncos fan, I'm not a fan of obviously the Chargers, the Raiders, the Chiefs in my division. But man, I just felt bad for Rivers because like each year he'd always put up decent numbers. He had a decent team, but he could never get over the hump. So
Mhm.
that's probably one guy out of like I'm sure there's a long list of players that deserve a Super Bowl championship, but he didn't even have a chance to play the game. So it would have been neat to see him in a final, but evidently it never happened. Okay, so with that being said, the next matchup took place in Detroit with them and the Rams. I know I was wild on this one. I thought that Matt Stafford would go into this matchup and just crush it against his former team. It was a close game. I think it was like 24-23 or something like that. Wow, what are your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it was a great game. I had a blast watching it, seeing those two quarterbacks go at it for each other. Um, I just seen something about Vince McMahon. Got guys all over the place. Um, but yeah, I had a blast watching that game. It was great to see. Something about a quarterback going against his former team is just so fun to watch. It's like being that Goff won. It's like a real slap in the face to the Rams, and I love that kind of stuff. It's like, see what you could have had. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
the Rams got a Super Bowl out of it, but it's still just fun for me to watch that happen.
perfect. The next matchup, this was hard to watch. Was the Eagles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Like we both picked the Buccaneers. Your thoughts on that big win for them, and obviously a huge disappointing loss for the Eagles.
It's time to clean house. That's what I think. The Eagles, I the roster's good, but coaching wise, it's time to maybe switch some things up. Maybe get a new coordinator on either offense or defense or both. I've heard recent reports that they're keeping Sirianni, so head coach isn't going to change anytime soon, but it doesn't look like it. So, but yeah,
Yeah,
I think they'll switch up at least a coordinator or two. Maybe see if they can get something else going.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Just it's something because obviously they made it to the Super Bowl last year. They had Super Bowl aspirations to get back, but I just read a stat that they were 10-1, and then they went 1-5 in their last 6 games, which is
Yeah.
just. I mean, they had that division crown in their hands, and then they just kind
Mhm.
of crumbled apart. The next matchup took place in Buffalo and Pittsburgh, so you had Mason Rudolph making his playoff debut. What were your thoughts on him?
I mean, I I got what I expected. I I being that cold weather game, I you knew Buffalo was gonna win that game. That's where they belong. And
Yeah,
Pitt went in there. I mean, I can't remember the final score, but was it relatively do you have the final score there?
they lost by 2 touchdowns. It was 31 to 17. So
Yeah, so at least they put up some points. It
yeah,
was I seen it being a lot bigger of a blowout. I mean, being with that weather, it's hard to, I mean, get many points, but you know, I it's kind of what I expected. Steelers showed a couple flashes here and there, but Bills got the job done as they should have.
yeah, exactly. Uh, this one here was a bit of a blow. I think they won by 19 points with the Chiefs and the Dolphins, 26-7. So, your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, it went about as I thought it would as well. I mean, I it's so hard to go against Mahomes in the playoffs. He's got that I'm gonna put the team on my back, even if I have these bummy receivers. I'm gonna go out and do my thing and give them the best opportunity to help our team succeed. And their defense is just playing so good. And then Dolphins wise, it's they're this close. I don't know what they're missing, but they're missing just like one piece that would make them that number one team, I feel. It feels like they're just that close.
Yeah, I mean, they had that division crown in their hands, and they lost to the Bills in Week 18 at home of all places. If it was in Buffalo, I'd say maybe the weather played a factor, but they had the home field. But unfortunately, the Bills were just a little bit hungrier to get that division crown. And the last game, and this is one I know it's going to be heartbreaking to talk about. So, the Browns and the Texans.
Yeah, this was a real heartbreaker for me. It was yeah, I didn't shed any tears, so it wasn't that bad. But yeah, it was a sad night watching them go down there. I was telling you, once I seen Flacco throw that first pick, I was like, yeah, this is where it ends. And then it snowballed from there. It was I think that the team played all right. I don't think it was one of our good showings. A couple players stood out to me, but that's just watching my team. A couple players played really well, but overall, not a great team performance, I feel like, so
Well, the thing is, you guys also, just like a lot of other teams, were dealing with the injury bug. I mean, you lost Chubb, and that was a huge piece on your offense. So,
yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, with injuries, it's gonna be tough, but I think the big players didn't step up and make big plays. I was, looking for Garrett to have that big sack or a strip or anything like that, and he had success rushing the passer, but never got home to get a sack or anything like that, but there's always next year.
yeah, I got to say, I was pretty impressed by CJ Stroud and the Texans. I thought that this was going to be a rebuild year because anytime you get a rookie quarterback, you're not always guaranteed to get a playoff spot, let alone win the division, especially when the Jags were favored. I thought the Titans could have bounced back, but they still are like they got a lot of question marks with that team there. So I was very impressed by them. I mean, them in Houston. The fact that Houston would, if Houston had a one, they would have been one. Or sorry, not Houston, Indy. If Indy had a one, they would have been the one hosting the Browns. So it's crazy to think how close that division really was. But yeah, I got to say, I'm very impressed by CJ Stroud. I think I've said this before. If he doesn't get Rookie of the Year, he's got to at least get like offensive like Rookie of the Year. It's got to be some type of award that he's guaranteed to get if it isn't Rookie of the Year for whatever reason. But yeah, I think they got a very good team, a very good coach, and there's going to be a lot of good signs to come.
Yeah, it's crazy that it's a rookie head coach as well. I mean, you got your quarterback being a rookie and your head coach being a rookie too.
Yeah.
You have first season together and you win a playoff game. It's definitely a good showing, and their team is young. They have a young team. So I think the future's bright down there in Houston.
It is. It is. I believe it'll be. I'll say it right now. I believe it's going to be a battle between Trevor Lawrence and CJ Stroud for that division. I really believe it's going to be like that, kind of neck and neck. All
Mhm.
right, so that takes care of the wild cards. So you're with your picks, you would have finished 4-2. With mine, I finished 3-3 because, of course, I went bet against the Lions, and that backfired on me. So now we'll take a look at the divisional matchups. So, speaking of the Lions, they played Tampa Bay. Final score 31-23. Were you impressed by Baker? Were you impressed by Goff? What really stood out from this game?
Well, these games were hard for me because I got to watch 2 of them. 2 of the 4 was what I was able to watch because I was working, but so the Lions game, I didn't really catch a whole ton of. I was kinda just, watching the play-by-play whenever I could,
Yeah,
and it looked like I was hopeful at the end of the game because Baker had that chance to go down and tie it up or whatever he could do, right? Drive down, but, it's Baker, and he ended up throwing that pick to seal the game, a and it seemed very fitting that that's how it ended, not on a missed 4th down attempt. I felt like it was fitting that it ended with an interception, just being the player that Baker is. I think he put up a good fight and showed a lot of resilience trying to make a name for himself as a starter and a good starter in the league, and I think he did that, but at the end of the day, the Lions are just a better team. There's not a whole lot you can do about it.
no, that's it. And they have Mayfield signed for a few years in Tampa too, isn't it?
No, he was on a one-year
Oh,
deal,
really?
kind of a prove it deal, so I'd imagine that they'll bring him back, but it was a
Yeah.
1 year, like a kind of prove it deal.
Okay, yeah, no, I could see them definitely resigning. They'd be stupid not to. So out of the quarterbacks in the division, I may need your help with this one. So they have obviously Baker should be coming back. You have Derek Carr, that drama in New Orleans, and then you have Desmond Ritter at Atlanta, and then rookie quarterback for Carolina.
Bryce Young.
There we go. Out of those 4 quarterbacks, those 4 teams, who do you see being the favorite for next season?
It's so hard to say at this point. I think it's still the Bucks. Um, Off season's going to tell a lot. I think that there's definitely going to be some mix up at quarterback. Probably for 2 of the teams, maybe more. I can definitely see for sure the Falcons moving on from Ritter, and then I could see the Saints even moving on from Carr, given the season that he had. It was a disappointing season, but the Panthers spent the first pick on Bryce Young. They're gonna see if they can ride that out for at least a couple of years, see if he can develop into that or their, franchise leader, but I think the Bucks have their guy in Baker for, I'd say, hopefully the next 3 to 5 years is what I'd like to see for him, but I think we'll see a lot of changes going through the offseason.
Oh, I can 100% see that. And it's funny that you said 3 to 5 because I was going to say three is probably the magic number. I could see them signing him for at least 2 to 3 years. A 5 year commitment on Baker, I think that'd be a big gamble. But I mean, if he can play as well as he did last season and keep that momentum going, who knows? Maybe this could be his division for many, many seasons to come. All right. So the next matchup that took place, and this was a heartbreaking one. I got to say, this was a heartbreaking one. Was the Chiefs and the Bills. Obviously, this is the first away game in the Patrick Mahomes era for the Chiefs, which was absolutely mind-blowing stat. They've
Mhm.
always been Arrowhead minus the Super Bowl. And obviously for the Bills, they had high hopes after already defeating the Chiefs in the regular season in Kansas City, of all places. They thought they'd be able to get the W. And unfortunately, this is the second time in their history of the playoffs where a kicker is lined up for a tying field goal or a game-winning field goal, and it's hooked right. So I just felt bad for them, 27-24. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, so, well, let's start with that kick. It I mean, you gotta feel for the guy. He goes out there, he's I mean, I haven't really I don't check kicker stats, but from what I've seen, he's a good kicker,
Yeah.
right? Like, it doesn't seem like he misses all too often, but given the conditions, I feel like you have to give him a little bit of leeway. I mean, you're basically kicking a rock, right? So, I feel like you gotta give him a little bit of leeway. I understand if fans are upset, but, like, I've seen a lot of reports coming out where he's gotten, like, death threats and all that kinda stuff, which is I mean, you gotta give the guy a little credit here. It's not all on him. It's like if someone dropped a pass and the fans complain about it, it's like one drop pass isn't gonna change the game. It's all the things together that help you lose a game. It's not just one play. So I feel like it's blown a little bit out of proportion, but you got to feel for the Bills that close and they just can't beat Mahomes.
I believed. I honestly thought, like, I did pick the Bills, and obviously I was wrong with this pick. I honestly thought this could have been the year after 3 straight seasons or 4 straight seasons making the postseason, but never able to get into the Super Bowl. And I thought this could have been the game where Josh Allen. I mean, he played great, and you can't really put the blame on, like I said, one person. You can't blame it on the kicker. Can't blame it on Allen for not having a last touchdown throw, whatever it was. But I mean, why not look at their defense? Maybe their defense could have like saved a touchdown or stopped, prevented like the Chiefs or got them out of the thing. So you mean it's a team effort, and I mean you
Mhm.
win as a team, you lose as a team. That's just my motto. You can't really single anybody out. So, but yeah, for the Bills, I say this is going to be a crazy prediction, but I mean, I don't know how long Allen's signed. It could be long term. I can't
He
remember.
does have a
I
big deal.
think they still have maybe a 1 or 2 more year window before like fit hits the sham. Like I think that the patience is like wearing very thin, especially for Bills fans, because obviously they had those 4 Super Bowls in the '90s, couldn't get it done, and haven't been back since. So I think, I mean, they could. I still think they could compete for a division crown next year, along with Tua and the Dolphins. I still think the Jets might be, if they have a healthy season with Rodgers, he might get them into a playoff spot, but it's not going to be a division crown. And the Patriots, who knows who their quarterback is? So I think that maybe next year, the year after, they can still compete for a division crown. But again, I think they honestly, I don't know if it's going to matter if they get the number one, number two, number three, number four seed. It's a matter of just winning in the playoffs. So
Mhm.
what was the other one? So we had the Baltimore Ravens, and they played obviously the Houston Texans. It was a close game. I remember it was 10-10 at halftime, and then the Ravens just got 24 straight points, and that won 34-10. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that Ravens game is pure evidence of inexperience. You have a team in the Ravens who has proven that they do this. They're a strong team year in and year out. They're always one of the top teams in the league. Lamar's proven that he is an elite quarterback, and I know I don't like Lamar being a Browns fan. I don't, but he better win MVP this year. And I mean, going up against the MVP as a rookie, that's a big ask, especially when you've never been there before. I think it was just a real true showing of the experience that the Ravens have compared to the super young team in the Texans.
Yeah, I truly think that the MVP definitely belongs to Lamar. You could give it to anybody, but he's obviously the running favorite. And I'm not a Ravens fan. Like I have nothing against them. I have nothing for them. Like I have no bitterness towards any other division in the AFC. I'll just put that out there. I'm not like a hater on the Steelers or a hater on whatever. I just hate my division teams. I
Mhm.
think that's pretty common. But again, I'm not, but obviously, when we discuss the championship game, I'm hoping obviously they can be able to get Lamar back, or not back, sorry, into a Super Bowl, and we'll see what happens, I guess. Okay, now the last game. I got to admit, I was cheering for their hoping for the away team because I thought a division championship would have been kind of neat. What is the San Francisco 49ers and the Green Bay Packers? I know I did predict San Fran would get that, and it was a close game, and it took until a late interception to seal the game, 24-21. Let's roll.
Yeah, so this one really brought me back because when I first started getting big into football, it was that really early 2010s. So, like 2010 to 2012 was when I really started watching football. And I believe it was 2012 when the Niners played the Packers. And I'm pretty sure that that was the game where Kaepernick ran for like 180 yards, and it was just electric. And that was the year that they ended up making the Super Bowl, losing to the Ravens, fittingly.
Yeah.
And it just really brought me back to that. So it was really a real fun watch seeing, love blossoming into this future of the franchise, it seems like, and showing that he has that potential to possibly lead this team to a Super Bowl. I think it was a really fun watch.
Yeah.
Even if they lost, I feel like they gained a lot of experience, showed what they could do, and I feel like a couple more pieces, and they could be a real threat in these next coming years.
I believe that they are a very good team. So obviously that takes care of the divisional round matchups. So did you want to go over your stats before we make our little predictions for the championship games?
Yeah, this is kind of leading into the championship game. So I've just got a, little stat sheet pulled up here, and I'm just starting rushing wise because I'll say this right now. I've been saying this all week. If McCaffrey has over 100 rushing yards, the Niners are going to win. And that's what I stand by. And I got it pulled up here. So the Lions are per game this year they were the second best in rush yards allowed per game. So they allowed, what am I looking at here? 89 rush yards a game.
Oh
So
wow.
they've in the past couple weeks they've been more vulnerable, but overall through the season they were actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But I think that if McCaffrey can beat them on the ground, it's gonna open up a lot for Purdy and the play action and across the middle especially. That's where I think the the Lions might struggle is with Purdy throwing across the middle to Ayuk and now Debo that he's cleared to play. He's definitely suiting up. So I got that a little while ago, but yeah, I think if McCaffrey starts running well and it opens up the play action, I think the Lions could be in for a long, long night.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, I'm just hoping for like good football, close games, like whether it's a last second field
Mm,
goal, team has to get a touchdown or something at the end. I just don't want to blow it because once we get a blow it, you kind of lose interest. Like, well, you already know the team's down by like 20 points, they're not coming back.
yeah.
So, a quick little thing or a little side note that I just looked up was this is gonna be the third time that these teams have met in the postseason. They've only met twice previously in 1957, way before my time. They met in the divisional round matchup. Detroit won that one 31-27. San Fran, I believe they had Joe Montana as their quarterback, would defeat the Lions in the divisional matchup in 1983. So the playoff series is tied at one. So whoever wins this is obviously going to have the 2-1 edge. Um, you know what? Screw it. I'll just say it right now. I'll give San Fran the edge. I know this is where we're going to end up disagreeing, and this is what I don't. I love disagreements. I don't care. Anyway, the only reason I say that is because obviously the home field advantage plays a big factor. I think they only
Mhm.
lost twice or maybe three times, but I mean the last game of the season they didn't have their starters, so they really only lost twice with their starters on offense and defense. And just like you said, if McCaffrey happens to rush for like 100+ yards, they're pretty much undefeated.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, I think, honestly, that's what the game's going to come down to. I'm sure that obviously both quarterbacks are going to show up and they're going to have probably monster games, 200-300 yards possibly. But I think this game could be solved or like, uh, how do I put this? Could be, oh my God, brain fart. Uh, it could come down to the run game, more or less.
Mhm.
And if obviously San Fran has a better run game, then they're almost guaranteed to make their the first time the Super Bowl for the first time since obviously the 2012-2013 when they played, just like you said, the Ravens. So, like I said, I'll go out on a limb. I have a hunch. I would love. I'll say this as a side note. I would love to see the Lions make the playoff or the Super Bowl because you and I discussed before that they've never made the Super Bowl, so
Mhm.
this would be huge for the city. But I guess the floor is yours. You can make your prediction.
Yeah. Uh, I'm gonna take the Lions. All right. I think that this game will be won and lost in the trenches. I think whoever runs for more or whoever defends the run better will win because
Yeah,
both passing attacks can win. We know that. But I think whatever rushing game performs better will end up winning it.
yeah,
And Detroit has that 1-2 punch. They have Gibbs, who's that, you know, outside runner who can bounce off of tacklers and, create a big play at any moment. And then you have Montgomery, who is just going to pound you in the teeth, and he's, you know, going to go right up the gut and wear down the defense. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of work those two in. I know that a lot of the times in the regular season, it would be one drive, one drive. But I think that they might go something more traditional where they have, say, Montgomery play first and second, and then maybe throw Gibbs in there for third or a passing down, that kind of thing. Uh, but I think it's going to be interesting seeing how they kind of mix that up. But I think it's going to be a close game. I think it could come down to whoever gets the ball last will win.
And that would be very epic. And I mean, if it can, like, field goals are cool, but I just think like last second touchdowns or like game winning touchdowns is like even more exciting because one fan base is like on their edge, like defense, other ones like score, and obviously I'm going to have half your fans leaving the game happy. Like, I just want to say this: if I ever have my passport, which I'm hoping to get one day, I think just going to a Super Bowl game. That I know it's going to be expensive as hell. I just think that experience would just be unreal. And typically, it's either in a dome or down south. They're not going to have the games. I know they had the Super Bowl one time, and I think it was New York, when obviously my Broncos got blown out by the Legion of Boom. But we don't talk about that. And aside from that, I think it's just been down south or in a state. It's not like you have to fight the cold.
I have two things on my bucket list, and that is to see the pyramids in Egypt and go to the Super Bowl. And I will make those two things happen. Mark my words, it will happen.
Oh, those are good goals. And seeing the pyramids, that'd be a pretty cool experience too. Um, so on the other side with the AFC, we have the Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens. I think this is like a dream matchup. This is kind of like I haven't been this hyped up for a championship game since maybe like Brady and Manning. Obviously, yeah, Mahomes, and you could say Burrow. Obviously, they played the playoffs twice, and they split the games. One year, one team won, the other team. But anyways, I'm rambling on. But I just haven't been this hyped up for a game when there's so much on the line because obviously one team has plays the game in 2 weeks, the other one has an even longer off season. So I just think before I make my prediction, I just definitely want to get your opinion first. But I think this is a dream matchup right here between the Chiefs and the Ravens.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think if if it happened, which I mean it's not going to, and it never will, but if the championship games were played at the same time, like if the NFC and the AFC game were at the same time, I'm watching this Ravens Chiefs game. This is what dreams are made of. Lamar versus Mahomes. Oh man, you have possibly one of the best arm talents we've ever seen in Mahomes versus the best dual threat quarterback we've ever seen with Lamar, maybe Vic, but I Lamar is just on another level right now, and I think watching those two go at it in a game of this magnitude is going to be something special to watch. I think it's going to be a lot of fireworks. You're going to see those quarterbacks show out. They're going to give it everything they have. I'd expect a couple trick plays. That's a little sneaky one for you. I think Andy Reid might throw out a little something special for him, but I'd watch out for that.
So who do you got?
I'm taking the Chiefs. I will not at this point in his career, I'm not gonna go against Mahomes in a championship game. I don't care if he's throwing to, you know, plumbers and mailmen. This this guy has something special when it comes to these kind of games. I don't know what it is. It's like, yeah, he plays good every game, but in these big important games, it's like he just flips that switch and he goes, "I'm going to win this game." And it's weird being that I'm older now and can like kind of think back on it. It's really hard to compare what he's done in the playoffs to any other quarterback I've seen.
Yeah, he's a freak of nature in a good way. There's a reason why he's won 2 Super Bowls and he's played in 3, and this is obviously going to be a 6th consecutive AFC Championship game, which is just a crazy stat. I think that's got to be up there with the records. I don't think I've seen one quarterback leave the same team. I mean, it may have happened, but I mean, this is just crazy. The talent that they got with Mahomes. I was a little skeptical, and I'm still a little skeptical about his contract because And I mean, you saw last year in the playoffs, he got hurt. He was hobbling off the side. I think it was in the Super Bowl, like hobbling off the side because of his leg. And that's a big part of this game. If you can take him out of the run game, then you have a chance to stop him. This is why I'm going to take the Ravens in this matchup. I just think that I feel that if you practice it, like they're both these quarterbacks are similar because they can run out of the pocket, run for 30, 40 yards or whatever it is. They can juke you out. So it's very similar in the approach. It's not like the back in the day where you just have the guys drop back and then they're waiting for someone to get open. Like nowadays, you have to be a dual threat because you can have pressure coming from your left, you can have pressure coming from your right. You have to have eyes on the back of your head, like all over your head for that matter, because you could have a lineman, you could have a cornerback, a safety coming chasing you down and try to sack you. So this is what I was trying to lead up to was because I think they practice against Lamar. I feel like that Lamar and Mahomes, like I said, they could be similar because if they're practicing against Lamar, and obviously you're not going to crush your quarterback, but like that there's a chance he could run, there's a chance he could wait, there's a chance he could do whatever. So like he's unpredictable. We'll put it that way. So if you can kind of practice against your quarterback and like stop him once in a while, maybe you have that mindset that like Lamar is kind of like Mahomes. So, I mean, if we feel comfortable practicing against him, it's going to be similar when they go up against Mahomes. So I don't know. I just think I don't just think. I just want a new AFC team in the Super Bowl. It's pretty much feeling like it's the Patriots all over again. And I know you cheered for them, and the only reason I hated them is because I'm a Broncos fan and they've kicked our butts a few times. But it's starting to feel like Mahomes and Kelsey are basically like the new Brady and Gronk.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. My wants and what I think are going to happen are different. So I think that the Lions and the Chiefs will win, but I want the Lions and the Ravens to win.
Yeah,
Same thing as you. It's nice to see a fresh team in there. And
yeah,
I mean, let's say the Niners and the Chiefs win, that's just a rematch of the Super Bowl, whatever it was, 2 or 3 years ago. So it's
yeah,
like I want to see something new, even if one of those two teams make it. It's nice to
yeah.
see someone new in there and try to hoist that trophy.
Yeah, no, I'm really open. Like, so if I go with my picks, like either way, we're not going to have the same thing because you and I picked opposite teams. But like, I picked the 49ers and the Ravens. You got the Chiefs and the Lions. So, I mean, I think a dream Super Bowl would be. I think it'd be kind of dope. Would be like Detroit and Baltimore because you have Goff and Lamar, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was like Purdy and Mahomes playing in the Super Bowl. I'd be a little upset, but like one thing I'll say was there was one Super Bowl I did not watch, and that was when the Rams and Patriots last played like 4 years ago.
Yep.
And I knew as soon as those two teams qualified for the postseason or the Super Bowl, I'm like, I already know New England's got this game. And apparently it was like the least watched Super Bowl. It was like 13-3 or something stupid. So I'm like, man, that would have been a boring Super Bowl to watch. Thank God I didn't watch that.
I watched every second of that game, and it was dreadful. I sat there, hands just like this, just looking at the TV for 3 hours, and I just sat there. My parents would like come by and they'd walk past me and they'd be like, "Oh, the game's still on?" I was just sitting there watching these guys go 3 and out for 4 quarters of football until the very end when Brady hit Gronk down the seam and they punched it in for the first touchdown of the game. Bang!
Yeah, what an epic game that was. And thankfully, that was the last that he won in New England. This is one thing I will say was I remember when he did switch over to Tampa. I at that point I wouldn't have even cared if you won. I know obviously he ended up winning a Super Bowl, but I wouldn't have cared if he won like 4 more. That wouldn't have bothered me. It's just the fact that he was in the same conference as my team. Then it's really hard, especially in the sense. I mean, there's been times we beat them in the championship games, but obviously in the past they've always had a number. I'm sure Brady has a winning record against every team. I'd be surprised if he didn't.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he does have a winning record against every team in the league,
Yeah,
except
I
for
mean,
maybe
it's,
the
that's
Giants. Maybe the Giants.
yeah, that's about it. Man, I'll still never forget those two Super Bowls. The first one, I was back east, and I moved to another city just to go to college, so I had some roommates that I was buddies with, and we were watching the Super Bowl. And I came across, I don't know if I got this at a thrift store or whatever it was, but it was just like a blue jersey and it had a number 10. And it had no, I don't think it was meant to be an NFL jersey. I think it was just a regular blue one. But I was like, hey, this is like Eli Manning's number. And then I had another buddy who was a Patriots fan, and that year that they went undefeated, I was like so against them. I'm like, come on, someone's got to take this team out. Obviously, the Giants ended up winning that game, and he was sour for like a little while. But I mean, it is what it is. But I thought that was probably like one of the better Super Bowls that I've seen. I'm sure there've been a lot of great ones, but that one definitely has got to be in my top five.
Oh yeah, yeah. I put that one up there for sure. Number one is that interception at the 1 yard line. Give me that. That game was awesome, man. What a time.
That I will never, and just like any fan will never forget because I still like I've watched that replay a few dozen times, and it just blows my mind because they still had a timeout. So even if they ran the ball one more time, they could have stopped the clock, could have spiked it, and yeah, they shouldn't have passed it. And there was the whole conspiracy about how they wanted Russ to have the MVP because obviously he would have the game-winning thrown touchdown. But Lamar easily should have won that because he was just a beast. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
beast mode. And but yeah, they should have handed it off to Marshawn. And I guarantee if they did, they would have scored, and then they could have two-peated. Who knows? They could have three-peated because they had a very good team because they still had the leads in a boom at the time too.
They sure did. And yeah, after they lost that game, it kind of sorry, I'm moving my camera. Um, it it just all snowballed from there. They lost that Super Bowl, and it was never the same. They just fell apart as a team, and it's actually sad to see. I mean, I don't like the Seahawks, I don't, but it's sad to see a team like that who had so much potential just dissipate that quickly because of one loss.
Yeah, yeah, that they never recovered. I think they may have made like a divisional round once or twice, but they never made it back to the conference final. Obviously, they never made a Super Bowl appearance, and they pretty much traded everybody away, or maybe people were tired. And now, obviously, the big news. I think it was last month that Pete Carroll has been relieved of his duties. So um, a lot of changes. Like you
Mhm.
said, it seemed like it was like a domino effect, and then as soon as one thing happened, it was just all the way and now, I mean, they're a decent team. I mean, I don't know if I'd put all my faith in Gino right now, but and then they got Drew Lock, who was a bust in Denver. I don't know if he's going to be much of a success in Seattle unless Gino goes down.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the Seahawks are in a tough place right now. It's hard to say what they do. Do you ride Geno? Do you draft someone? They have a high pick this year. I know that because or I think they got it in a trade, but they have a really good pick this year. It's in the top 5, so
Okay.
they could take a quarterback.
And I think you've mentioned this before that it's a pretty heavy quarterback draft class as well. So if a lot of teams are looking for one, this is probably the year to do it.
It's a very heavy quarterback class. I think there's probably 5 or 6 guys that could go in the first round.
That's crazy. And what's even more mind blowing is like I don't want to say all number ones have been bust, but I'm sure there has been a handful that haven't been played that great. But you look at some of the great quarterbacks or some of the great players that were drafted number one that are like Hall of Famers, and obviously I think Brady. I think he was like I can't remember what round he was drafted, but obviously he wasn't the first round. And I look at him, yeah, sixth round. And then I'm sure there's been other guys that have. I know obviously Wilson was drafted later on for the Seahawks, and then obviously he helped win on the Super Bowl and get them back-to-back Super Bowls. So I mean, you don't always find a quarterback in the top five, but
Yep.
I mean, because like some guys they may not look great at the combine, but doesn't mean they're not going to work well for a team. So
Yeah, I mean, if you kinda look back on drafts and you look at, like, the top quarterback picked, it takes a while to find someone who has success. I mean, in the top 5 like previous years, I mean, the only one I can really think of number 1 overall would be Stafford. He's the only kinda number 1 overall pick that I just off the top of my head can think of that has had a really successful career.
One thing I wanted to ask was whenever I think of Detroit, they had the great Barry Sanders. Unfortunately, he retired early, and then you had Calvin Johnson, who I thought was like Megatron, who was just an unbelievable guy,
Mhm.
and they both retired early. Do you think that like I have a funny feeling I know the answer to this, but just more or less your opinion. But do you think that they were just that dedicated to the city, even though they had losing seasons or couldn't make it far in the playoffs, that they just didn't have the heart to get traded? Because a lot of times now, especially nowadays, if a team sucks, guys want out. They're like, listen, this team's no good. I want to get out of here. But then you have those rare ones where you not only have a good talent on the field, but it seems like they're very good guys off the field as well.
Yeah, so I'd kinda link those 2, so Barry and Calvin, to someone like Jason Kelsey, if he hadn't won a ring. So,
Yeah,
I believe he was drafted in 2011, if I'm
yeah,
correct. So, he had a 12 or 13-year career on one team, or there's a couple guys on that Eagles team, Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox. They've been on the team for, I think, 14 and 15 years for each of them. And I think at that kind of point, even if you're not winning, you've given so much to a community. You've got friends there, you've got your family there. You kind of that's your home. It's not who you play for, that's your home now. And
right.
I think with both Barry and Calvin, it's kind of a mix of, yeah, we've been losing, but, like, do I wanna switch teams? Do I wanna relocate in the chance that I win? Or do I wanna make this place my home and leave this franchise behind with my legacy? Is kinda the way I look at it, especially with Calvin, like, he's very active with the Lions, and he still is at a lot of games with on the sideline and all that kinda stuff, so I think it is part of wanting to be part of a community as much as it is ring chasing, if you will.
Um, I have another question I was going to ask about that, but do you think that we could use those two guys as an example, but you could also use someone like Andrew Luck, who obviously retired early as well.
Yep.
But do you think that there are certain players that they I don't want to say they regret it, but maybe there's the word I'm kind of regret that I'm thinking of because like a lot of players they might retire and then be like, oh shoot, like I could have still been working out, could have been still with a thing. Obviously, it's a different lifestyle because you're not going to be with the same guys you are every single day. But do you think in the back of their minds, they at least if they don't say it out loud, they got to be pondering it at least?
I think it varies player to player. Like Andrew Luck, I don't think that he wants to play football because he simply just took too many hits. It was too much on his body. If he hadn't taken those hits, I definitely think that he would like to still be playing. But I
Yeah,
think a lot of the guys who say retire early because of injury or whatever it is that they retire early for, I think that a lot of them are content with their career unless it was ended not on their doing. So, like, I'm trying to think of a player who I could use here. Like, this is a not a great example, but like Henry Ruggs, who had this huge, bright future, and in one night it was just thrown away because of a stupid decision. I feel like that would be one of those situations where it's like, I'm not happy with how I left my career because of one mistake or something like that. It's just it's a hard topic actually.
yeah. Well, I knew. So probably shouldn't have brought up luck because I know obviously that was a whole other issue. But I'll still never forget when he was on the sideline and it was still preseason and then he just walked off the field. And then for some reason, in the back of my mind, I'm like, can you imagine if he like says he wants to retire? And then sure enough, it was like the next morning he came out and he said that he was retiring. And I know there were a lot of Colts fan members that were pissed off, but I don't think they realized the reason why. Because I think he said something along the lines of every season it was you get hurt, you get surgery, then you got to recover. And it was
Yep.
like the same thing, same procedure every offseason. And then I don't think a lot of younger players now, but maybe they do now because I'm sure there's a lot of teams that have like about it is thinking term goals. Because if you get too many concussions, or say if you break a leg or you do any injury, you don't know. Like you might be okay now, but maybe when you get up there in age, that's not that broken leg that happened in 24. Maybe that's catching up with you now in your 50s and
Yeah, and I
60s.
think along with that, it's a different world that we live in right now. And I think along with injuries, mentally, it's a lot more taxing on players. You have all this media, like I'm just thinking from this past season, like Kadarius Tony with all those drops he had. I can only imagine how bad his DMs were or his like all those messages going towards him. I bet you he got multiple death threats, people telling him that he's worthless, anything like that. I think it's in this day and age with social media especially, it's really easy for fans to blame one player and just hammer them with all this emotional and mental can't think of the word, mental abuse almost, where they just hammer them with all these negative comments, and I think it that really does take a toll on players. So I think it's in the next few years, I think it's going to be interesting seeing if some people step away from the game because of how much hate they're getting.
Well, there's that, and then I know that there's. I'm sure. I know this affects a lot of hockey teams. So I don't know if it affects a lot of football teams. Media can drive people insane, drive them away too. Because I mean, you're asking a lot of stupid questions, and just imagine if you had a crappy game, and in the locker room you got like 10 people in your face, you got microphones,
Yep.
and like it's you're deflated. Like you're upset with yourself. You probably have teammates upset with you. You probably have coaches upset with you. Now you got the media asking questions like, "What's going on? Why did this happen?" So I mean, I'm sure players probably get just tired of asking the questions, and I know you can see the frustration on some players, especially after things, and you know they want to just go to town on the. You know what? Blank, 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 blank. But unfortunately, they're living in a league where they can't swear at people because they're guaranteed to get fined.
Yep.
I don't think he's ever gotten suspension from like cussing people out, but I mean, it could possibly happen depending on history, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing on my view of like celebrities, like whether you're an actor or a musician, anything like that,
Yeah,
with the paparazzi or anything like that. I think at the end of the day, a, l- a lot of people need to realize that they are just people. They're just like me and you. They go home to their families after doing their work for the day. They go to their job for the day or whatever they do. At the end of the day, whether they are playing a sport and they play bad, or they release a song that's not very good, or they're part of a movie that gets really bad reviews and they get
yeah.
hated for it. At the end of the day, you gotta learn that or understand that eh, everyone is just a person and they're gonna make mistakes and they're gonna mess up. But I think that a lot of famous people get a lot of undeserved hatred.
No, it's very true. Like there's fans that are passionate, and there's ones that are just like local, where
Yeah.
it's just you're obviously going to be upset, especially after if you are watching something like that live happen. But to take it out on a person is totally absurd because if I was in that position, like say if I knew I screwed something up for my team and that was something happened to me, I'd be looking and I'd call my manager, be like, let's call another team, get me go get me somewhere else. I'll put a for sale sign on my lawn right now because yeah, I'm not dealing with this crap.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I mean, maybe people have thicker skin than me. Um, so, what else would I really want to talk about? Do you remember when? The reason I remember this is only because my team beat the Panthers in the Super Bowl. But when Cam Newton was asked questions and he just like stormed out on the media, and I believe after that game, it's kind of funny we were talking about Russ and Seattle kind of struggling after they lost that heartbreaking Super Bowl. I feel like ever since Cam lost, Obviously, I don't think he's in the league anymore. And if he is, I don't know where he is. But yeah, he was not the same quarterback after that. I think they had one more successful season where they made the playoffs. But I think they lost to the Saints or something like that. But yeah, talk about falling off the map after MVP season.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how that works actually, where if you get this team that kind of comes out of nowhere and like the Panthers, nobody expected them to have that. I believe they went 15-2 that year, if I'm correct there. But they nobody seen that coming, and they were this dream team, and they were going to win the Super Bowl, and they were going to have this legacy. And in one game, it's gone. Cam's out of the league now, and he bounced around from team to team for the last few years of his career.
Yeah.
It's just kind of crazy to me that in one game your career just goes downhill, which hopefully doesn't happen this year. Talking about
Yeah.
these guys,
Yeah.
talking about those guys. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but
Yeah.
I think it's really crazy how quickly your career can change like that.
And I mean, he didn't decline as much, but I think the following season when Atlanta went to the Super Bowl, and obviously we'll never forget that 28-3 thing. And it's so mind blowing that I feel like Kyle Shanahan has kind of learned his lesson after so many years because obviously he has Christian McCaffrey on his team. He runs the ball more. But
Yep.
I'll never forget that Super Bowl. And I remember watching it, and then like I could slowly just see the lead getting closer and closer and closer. And then I'm like, oh my God, they're going to tie the game. And then they do tie the game, and then they win it in overtime. But I think this is the fourth quarter when he either got hit throwing the ball. I was just like, just run it, just run the ball. Take the clock down, and yeah, it just blew my mind. I knew they were that year they were very a pass heavy team, so I think that's just what their mindset was. But you got to think smart too in a situation like that. Like it's the Super Bowl. This is probably going to be your only chance at getting this, and then yeah, they kind of fell apart. So
Yeah,
that was
those are your prime Julio Jones years where you basically throw it to him and he go and catch it. Like
yeah,
that one toe tap sideline catch he had in the Super Bowl. I don't know if I've ever seen a better catch on the sideline than that one. The concentration that you have to catch the ball 3 yards out of bounds and keep your body in is that play is really just something else to watch.
yeah, and then obviously they fell apart after that, and I felt bad for them because I was kind of hoping that they could have gotten it, but now that's been two Super Bowls and no nothing to show for it. And then with Matt Ryan specifically, obviously he again year after year they regressed, and then he played 1 year I think in Indy, and that was a horrible season. And I'm pretty sure if he's in the league, I don't know where he is, but he has to have retired because I mean he was yeah that's what I thought. He's out of the league now. In your opinion, and I know this is like touchy subjects when it comes to certain people because I think you have to have certain aspirations in order to qualify. But do you think he's a Hall of Fame quarterback?
Matt Ryan?
Yeah,
It's so hard with him because he does have the MVP, he's got the numbers, he doesn't have the Super Bowl, but he does have a couple playoff wins in there, he has success.
yeah.
I'd have to look at his awards, I'd have to look if he ever made All-Pro or if he ever made Pro Bowl. It based off stats, probably not. It would really depend on awards if he happened to make a first or second team All Pro, or maybe made 4 or 5 Pro Bowls. I'd have to check that out. But
No,
if based off my knowledge, no.
no. I was going to say it's kind of like him and Cam because they both went to Super Bowls. They lost. They both had MVPs, and then they regressed after their Super Bowl appearance. So it's like you could kind of put Cam in that same situation too. Like, does he qualify? Yeah, he was talented. He was. I think he was the first like real mobile quarterback because he would run. Like he was. Yeah, like of that era, I should say. I mean, I'm sure other ones did, but like he was one who like could run for like 100 yards a game. But yeah, that's tough. I mean,
I am going to retract my statement. I'm thinking about it now, and I'm pretty sure that Matt Ryan was drafted in either 2007 or 8. I think that he probably actually has good enough numbers that will get him in. I wonder if I can pull that up.
Yeah, go
Because I
ahead.
bet you he's probably top 10 in passing yards all time.
That wouldn't surprise me. Like they've had a lot of good seasons, but obviously they only had that one real good one in 2016, 2017. But that's if you had to choose between him and Cam, who would you go with? I guess
At their peak or career?
career.
Career, Matt Ryan, 100%.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So 14-year career in Atlanta and then 1 year with Indy.
Yeah.
Career 60,000 passing yards, 380 touchdowns. Completion percentage 65.
That's
Those numbers are pretty good.
yeah, it's not bad.
Oh, that's a tough call.
Where does he rank on the all-time passing yards and stuff like that?
I'd have to take a. Oh, so his MVP year he got first team All Pro. So
Okay, there's that.
oh god, that's hard. I'm gonna give it a yes. A 15-year career with just over 60,000 passing yards. I think they give it to him. Yeah, they tend to give it to those guys who play for that kind of period of time. Like Rivers, he'll probably make the Hall of Fame.
Oh, guaranteed.
Even though he didn't have success in the playoffs, he
Yeah,
has the numbers. It's
yeah,
the same thing with. Did Breeze ever win a Super Bowl? Yes,
yep,
he
yeah.
won one.
The
But
Saints.
I think a lot of those older guys who play that super long career, that 12 to 15 year, I think after you play that long, you're basically guaranteed if you have the numbers.
Now, I remember this question came up on a video that I watched. This was a while ago,
Yep.
and I was trying to look at the arguments for and against it, and I could see both points. But obviously, Peyton made it to the Hall of Fame. Now there was the one speculation about will Eli get in the Hall of Fame, and I'll just say this first: is obviously he has 2 Super Bowls, but then if you look at his career, like there was a lot of times he had a lot of interceptions. He led the league in interceptions, so it's just like it kind of balances itself out. So before I make my crazy prediction, would you give him a shot or a vote for the Hall of Fame?
Eli,
Yeah,
that one's also really tough because you're looking at a couple great seasons and a good amount of not very good seasons.
yeah.
So it all depends on what the board values more. Do they value those 2 Super Bowls or do they value his whole career together? If you value his whole career together, I say no. If you value the Super Bowls more, then it's a yes. So it really depends on the person, I guess.
I'm only going to say yes just because he's a Manning. If it wasn't for Peyton and it wasn't for Archie, I guarantee they probably wouldn't even. I guarantee he wouldn't have had the success that he did because I'm sure
Yeah.
his family was a major factor in wherever he went. But I'm just going to say yes just because he's a Manning. Otherwise, he'd be like one of the guys. Like again, it's a lot of guys make the Hall of Fame don't win the Super Bowl, and a lot of guys win the Super Bowl and don't make the Hall of Fame. So it's not like a guaranteed lockup by the end of your career. You're like, oh yeah, my resume says I should do it. But by the time you're eligible, you're not.
Yeah.
So if it was up to me, again, just like you, I'd say no because he had a lot of bad seasons. Like I said, I'm pretty sure he at least led the league at least one time in interceptions. It had to have happened at least once.
Had to have
And
happened a good 3 times.
I said once just to be nice, but I'm pretty sure it probably was a few times. So yeah, again, just because he's a Manning, guaranteed. Sorry, because of Manning and the 2 Super Bowls, that'd be my qualification to put him in the Hall of Fame. When it comes to their careers, and I'm sure they both still have long careers. I just want to touch on the Browns for a quick second. With both Garrett and Chubb, do they both have long-term contracts, and B, if they both stay Browns, do you see them like having their name or not their name, their number up on like the stadium, like they do with a lot of like infamous quarterbacks and stuff like that.
I think if he keeps at the same pace, I think Garrett will be a Brown his entire career, and I think his number will get hung up. It's so in this day and age, it is so hard for a running back to last. I think that Chubb will be regarded as probably the second best running back in Browns history behind Jim Brown, of course, but I think Chubb was drafted in 17, going into his 8th year next year. Eh, it'll be really hard for him to have his number retired. I know he's been the best running back in the league for a couple years now, but with how long running back careers are these days, unless he plays for a Frank Gore amount of years, he won't get that done.
No, and it's a shame because running backs are just as important as receivers or tight ends or your blockers. Because if there's no run game, your quarterback's going to be throwing the ball. He'll have to have ice on his shoulder by the end of the game because if you're throwing it 50, 60 times, you need a run game. You need a running back. But like you said, it's just not a long career. Like, just look at Zeke. He was phenomenal in his rookie year. He got that monster contract, and each year he kind of like regressed. Now he's in New England, and I don't know what he had for numbers last year, but I guarantee he probably didn't hit 1,000 yards.
No, not even close because Stevenson's ahead of him, right? So yeah, Zeke, I love Zeke. I think the first 4 or 5 years of his career, he was just dominant, and then, like you said, all of a sudden you stop getting those carries and your career's over. It's
Yeah.
basically I wouldn't be surprised if he's out of the league in the next 2 years. It's that crazy right now.
That's unreal. I want to hit you with two little. They might be tough questions, but going into next season, as long as he can stay healthy, do you think Watson can be just as good as he was this year? Or do you think he'll be better next year?
I want to say he'll be better. I think that he hopefully will I seen a lot of nice flashes from him in the latter half of the season. Um, I think the last couple of games he had, the last 4 or 5 games he played in, he played really well,
Yeah.
and it felt like he was slowly starting to be able to get his accuracy down, which was his main issue. Um, if he comes back strong from his injury, I think definitely he could lead us to maybe a 12-5 record is kind of what I'm looking at going forward, depending on how he recovers from his surgery.
Now, obviously, the big thing that was a huge shock last year was Joe Burrow going down for a season-ending injury, and that pretty much just crushed the hopes of the Bengals fans. Uh, obviously, he's a very talented quarterback. So let's just paint a picture here. Let's say the Ravens play as well as they do next year, this year.
Yep.
You have a healthy Joe Burrow. Um, Again, with Pittsburgh, they're a wild card in my opinion because it's crazy how they've been so successful as Mike Tomlin. Of course, they've never had a below 500 record, which blows my mind. Obviously, they had Big Ben as their quarterback for a good chunk of that time, so that's probably the main reason there. But the fact that they did it without him the last 2 seasons is crazy. So if there's a slim chance the Steelers finish like 9-8, like they did, or whatever it is, where do you honestly think the Browns can finish in that division?
I'm not worried about the Steelers. They're gonna finish 4th. Unless they go out and trade for Josh Allen. They're finishing 4th. And I think that the Browns will finish 2nd next year. I think that right at this point, it's really hard to say between the Ravens and the Bengals who will come out, especially before the offseason, because I'm pretty sure that the Bengals are going to lose a couple key players. I wouldn't be surprised if they lose Mixon. I won't be surprised if they lose T. Higgins. I think they're going to lose a couple of those key pieces. So I think at this point, I think it'll go Ravens, Browns, Bengals, Steelers right now.
You really think they're going to finish? The Bengals are going to finish below the Browns? Wow, that's bold. It's possible. I mean, it is possible.
It's really reliant on who the Bengals lose because if you lose that 1-2 punch with Jamar and T. Higgins, I feel like
Yeah.
you're taking a lot away from their offensive game. So it'll be interesting to see how the offseason plays out.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued to see him have a bounce back season next year. I'm sure just like anyone else because that was a tough because it was his hand that he broke his finger. Isn't it? What was it? I remember.
It was his he tore something in his wrist, I believe.
Okay, I just remember seeing him getting ready to try to throw the ball and it was just like an instant like cramp or something, and then the ball just kind of fell to the ground. And I'm pretty sure at that point he knew he wasn't coming back in the game. So um, I'll say this that I believe it's the division can honestly go to anybody, and especially
Mhm.
not me, because you have three very talented teams with three very talented quarterbacks and three good coaches as well too. That really helps out. But um, I would say next year, I think depending on the schedule too, because I'd have to see the schedule for the other teams. But depending on the schedule, I would have either the Bengals or the Ravens pegged as favorites. I still think you guys could sneak in as a wild card. And I mean, if you guys already got the fifth seed with 11 wins, like you said, if you get a healthy Watson, there's no reason you couldn't get at least 12.
Mhm.
There's no reason. So I could see that happening. But again, the only way that, like, unless Burrow gets hurt again or he has a very bad season, it's hard to not picture the Ravens not in the top two. Like, I think they should be kind of favorites to get that division. But I mean, maybe this is just their only year. I have no idea. But I mean, they have Lamar, who's very talented.
I think it'll be so close that at this current point, I think that all 3 of those teams will get at least 11 wins. Like, I think that that's gonna be the crown jewel of the NFL is gonna be the AFC North with probably the Ravens winning 12 or 13 games, hopefully the Browns winning 11 or 12, and then same thing with the Bengals. I think all of those are gonna finish with that 10 to 13 record is kinda where I picture for all 3 of them next year.
Yeah, no, they're. I can easily see 3-10, 3-3-3. Sorry, oh my god, I could easily see three teams from that division making the playoffs because they're all very good and very talented. And I mean, if you think about it, theoretically, if you had four good teams in your division, you'd all make the playoffs because you obviously
Yep.
have the number seven seed. So I want to ask your honest opinion, and this might be the. I might have one more question after this. We'll see. But do you like the addition of the seventh team?
I do, because I think that the number 1 team in the conference deserves the bye. I don't think it should be 2 teams. I think you're number 1 for a reason, so you should get your bye. I think that having that extra seed gives a little more fun to the league where a little bit more or a couple more teams get to come in and compete for that coveted Lombardi. So I think it works out for everyone, in my opinion.
I agree. I like having an extra team. Obviously, we were spoiled forever having the top two teams. It's just like every team's mindset was just like, for the number two seed, okay, we got to buy.
Yep.
But obviously, this anything can happen. As just obviously the Cowboys lost to the Packers. The Packers the first seventh seed to win a playoff game. So just because you got the number two seed doesn't mean you're guaranteed to get a win. Like I said, it's only
Mhm.
happened. They only had that happen once, but if it can happen once, it can happen to any team. I guarantee next year there could be an upset too. Whoever's the number two seed for the NFC or AFC, I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of good teams.
100%.
So I guess the big question is that no matter who plays in the Super Bowl, is Taylor Swift getting the MVP?
100%. They are gonna bring her down from the booth. MVP goes to crowd stops, lights go off, she pops up, top of the stadium. That's what's gonna happen. Showstopper.
Oh man, I'll just say this: when I remember, like I've always watched the Super Bowl halftime show, and like a lot of them are good, some of them are kind of duds. I thought last year because Rihanna was pregnant, I thought that was oh man, like it was okay, but you could tell that she had a bigger stomach.
Yeah. I enjoyed last year, so I think this year, we got Usher going out there. I think we're in for a fun Super Bowl this year. All 4 teams that are remaining, I think, all have a really good chance at winning it. So I think we're in for a really fun Super Bowl with a great halftime show, hopefully some funny commercials thrown in there. I always like the Super Bowl commercials, but I think we're in for a fun one.
Yeah, I mean, if you have either the Chiefs or the Ravens, you're going to have a mobile quarterback. And the NFC, you're going to have Purdy. He can run the ball too, or you have Goff, who obviously had Super Bowl experience with the Rams. So, yeah, it should be interesting. Who do you want to see win?
The Super Bowl,
Yeah,
the Lions,
okay.
because I have I there's I follow a couple guys on YouTube or whatever
Yeah,
who are like lifelong Lions fans who I've watched these guys' videos for 5-10 years. So they're always like, complaining like, man, these Lions can never get it done. And now seeing them rise with especially Dan Campbell, who I love, I think that he's just the greatest. If I was a football player, that's who I want to be my coach. A guy that inspires the team. Everything he does, I think, is great. I think that the Lions winning would just be something special. So I hope that they do win the Super Bowl this year.
that would be fantastic. And obviously, if it's the first time, it would be very memorable.
Mm.
Um, if I had to choose someone besides the Lions to win, I would probably say the Ravens.
Yeah,
I'm not that crazy about San Fran. I don't hate them, but I mean, I don't really like them. And then obviously, I'm not a fan of the Chiefs. So I don't want to see any of those. I don't want to see that team for sure win. But yeah, if it wasn't the Lions, obviously, it'd be nice to see Jackson get his first Super Bowl. And I mean, if he could have his dominant season as he does this year, next year, or the year after, he could be like a 3-time, 4-time MVP by the time his career is over. So he's a very good quarterback. There's no question about it.
yeah. I remember you saying this earlier. At this current point in the season, I'm not all too concerned about who wins. I want good football. I
Yeah.
want exciting games. I don't want blowouts. I want close, exciting games where I'm locked in on the TV and I'm not, man, when's this game going to end?
Yeah, no, let's just hope it's some good games, some fun games, some close games, and they'll get a lot of views. And I just wanted to put this as a last little thing is you were talking about Super Bowl commercials, which are fantastic, by the way. But it's crazy to think of how much money these companies invest.
Oh,
30-second commercials, like millions of dollars. It's like, holy.
there was a commercial, I think it was 2 years ago, and I'm pretty sure it was a blank screen
Yeah.
for I think they bought it for $6 million, and it was just a blank screen for 30 seconds. What are we
Jeez.
doing?
That's unbelievable. But I mean, they're fun to watch, and I imagine, I mean, if you got money to fork out for a commercial, you'll make that money back at some point.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, 100%.
Especially if you get like a Dodge or something like that, then people are going to be wanting to buy Dodge just because they saw it on the commercial.
I bet you something like a Tide laundry detergent does really well for the Super Bowl. I bet you. Everyone's grubbing on the snacks. People are like, "Guess what we need? Tide."
Yeah.
I bet you. I mean, man, they have to make so much money. Oh,
Did you see that bounty sheet? Now we got to go get some bounty.
exactly.
Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for now. Obviously, we still have 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, so we'll have more time to talk about that in the upcoming future. Was there any last second questions you wanted to fire away?
Go Lions.
There we go.
That's all I got to say.
Win it for Slim Shady. There we go.
Oh, I can right here. All I can picture is halftime of this game. He walks out and performs. I really hope it happens because they haven't announced anything. They haven't announced if they're having a halftime performer. If he walks out and starts rapping, oh man. Oh,
That would be pretty epic. Get everyone singing 8 Mile. That'd be fantastic.
exactly.
Wicked. Well, I want to thank you again for joining this chat. This was a lot of fun, and like I said, we'll definitely be talking very soon, and we should have our video within the next few weeks talking about the Super Bowl and who we predict will get Super Bowl 58. So, as always, like I said, I can't thank you enough. This is very fun for me.
Yes, thanks again for having me. It's always a blast. So I'm happy to be on.
Wicked, buddy. Well, you take care. Have a good night, and we'll be in touch.
You as well.
See you, bud.
Bye.